Hello, everyone. I'm assuming that we have people from potentially different countries and different time zones as well, possibly. So I'll start off by giving a quick introduction about myself, and I'll give a bit of a heads up in terms of how I see this afternoon's or evening space working, and then we can proceed from there. So my name's Liz, and no one calls me by my full name, Elizabeth. I currently work at Junior Achievement Malta office, which is part of an international network. So you might have heard of it in other countries. Just came back actually from a European conference in Estonia, where we had a European competition for all young people's national winning teams competing against each other. So fresh with quite a few pitches, presentations, styles, what seemed to have worked, what seems to might have not worked as much, even as part of the audience. I've been working there for 4 years. I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship and startups and mentorship and kind of really helping people and individuals kind of kick off, and especially when it comes to how to communicate through visuals, through pitches, and understanding how an audience can perceive an idea and how to communicate that much more effectively. From an educational standpoint, I have a master's in innovation and creativity. So if you were struggling, especially in terms of idea generation or finding solutions, then that's something I can help with in terms of how to think differently, how to get out of the usual thinking box. Okay, so that's a very, very quick introduction about myself, but I think this is something that we can continue discussing as conversations flow. For the next hour, really and truly, I haven't prepared a specific presentation or a workflow because I do want to see exactly where everyone stands, get a bit of an idea as to what you might be struggling with. The only thing I do have prepared is a very short 4-minute presentation or tips or tricks when it comes to visuals for potential pitch deck or visual deck, a presentation deck that can support a presentation that you can deliver. It's super short, but I'll leave that when I see the need arising. So that's a bit about me. I would like to go around with a bit of a round robin and ask everyone to just quickly introduce yourself, maybe even something that you might be seeing as a challenge, or something that you're struggling with, so that then once we finish the round robin, we can actually start tackling all your questions and maybe challenges and see from there. I hope this sounds good for everyone. Sasha, I can ask people, right, to ask questions and then introduce themselves.
Yes, do you see the chat?
So the chat box, I do see the chat box. I think maybe the cleanest way is to ask specific people so we don't over.
Yeah. Also possibility to raise your hand if there's people who wants to ask questions. You can do it any way you want. To raise your hand, it's at the bottom in the middle. And I'm also trying to figure out why some people cannot get in, which is weird, but there's a few that cannot get in. I'm trying to find out why.
No worries. I think in the meantime, we can start with the people who are here. So maybe we can start off with Karen. Hello. And if you can tell me where you're from as well, that would be super cool. Hi.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Karen Jooster and I'm from South Africa. I live in Cape Town, but we're moving back to my home province at the end of the year, which is a very rural area in South Africa. And I'm quite excited for getting out of the city. I'm really looking forward to moving back home. So I founded a Rightful Share and Income Movement about 2 years ago. It's a non-profit. And we're going to be piloting a digital basic income in this rural province of mine, a small town called Groblershoop. And I partnered with a company called Good Dollar, obviously, and they will be providing the digital UBI for the people, but I still have to raise the funds for the operations. I mean, it's actually the easy part to give the money. It's the difficult part to take that and build it into excitement and storytelling and, getting buy-in for the project. And I have to say, well, that's one thing, but I've been finding the pitching really difficult. And I don't know why they don't learn this for you in school or at university for that matter. And I was telling my husband, it's a different way of communicating, because I find I tend to slip into sort of academic language because that's easier for me, but obviously that doesn't sell. And otherwise, I was a member of parliament for 10 years, and I realized, as a member of the opposition, and I now realize why we were in the opposition, because I tend to go to sort of a negative, wanting to criticize and say this is, so I'm finding it difficult to sort of sell and be positive. No, I am positive, but I'm finding the pitching is like a different way of communicating. It's not, and it's a skill that you have to learn, and it's quite challenging for me.
Yeah. All right, quite interesting actually, and I do see why it might be a bit challenging in order to adapt how you communicate, because obviously now you're representing a very different entity altogether, and you're probably like the end goal is a very different end goal. Okay, so yeah, cool. All right, we'll see how this discussion can unfold. Thank you very much, Karen. All right, we have Alina.
Yeah, that's just adding something to Karen so that I don't forget. I'm sorry, I do that.
No worries, no problem, no problem. All right, I'll skip Alina for now. Maybe she's not able to unmute. Shillart, I really hope I'm saying your name right. Hi.
Hi. Yes, my name is Sheku, and I'm an artist. I'm from Iran, and now I'm working as a freelancer. But I have some ideas about starting a startup. I wanted to move to Holland, to Netherlands, to start a startup business. But I have some problems about the idea, because every idea comes to my mind is really personalized. I can explain it by an example. For example, I have the idea of making video, artistic video for people who live in distance, for maybe lovers or children or for parents. This video can tell the story of a relationship. It's really beautiful. By the way, I am doing this in my Shillart studio now. But the idea is really personalized, and I understand that if the idea is really personalized, it's less productive because the cost and all the prices goes up, and you can't do this for many people, because when it's customized or personalized, you should do just for a person. And I can't do, I don't know, I'm thinking about some way to make a balance between productive product and have a personalized product, because I believe personalizing in art is really special. When some gift gives you that is really for you and tells the story of you is really special. I have this problem now.
Right, so if my understanding is correct, it's like a challenge between what you're really passionate about in terms of the storytelling of the individual, but how to make it even financially and time sustainable from a financial standpoint, from a time and resource. Does this make sense?
Yes, because when you know, I can't do this very in a sizable number of products, because it's
It
really
takes time.
hard when or maybe I should hire many artists, or maybe I can't make a big business.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for sharing and telling us your challenge. All right. Let's see. We have someone under QI. QL.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry. My name is Queenie. I'm sorry I didn't adjust my profile name before.
It's all good.
So I joined Karen Josta on her endeavor for basic income for everyone, at least in South Africa at first. It's a very interesting project, and I'm happy to be on board. The thing that I find difficult with pitching personally is finding the why. The why is for me, or for people in the project, seems so straightforward or so logical that you're like, this is why. But then you pitch it to someone else, or maybe you tell it to someone else, and they don't understand your why, or they are looking for a different why. So I find it hard to find the right why to address certain topics in our pitch, to make it clear for the people we are addressing.
All right. So the communication of the essence of the why, and making sure that it's being understood. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we have Alina as well here.
Yes. Hi. Sorry, I can turn up my camera.
It's fine.
My problem. Yes, my project is universe, world of knowledge. This is the universe, meta universe for children who will play in the games and at the same time gaining knowledges. But I have one problem with the customers, because it's parents. I don't understand what value for parents.
Okay, so communicating the value for parents, like identifying how to sell it to them. Okay, and may I ask where you're from?
From Russia, but naturally. But right now I live in Netherlands.
All right. Thank you very much, Alina, for joining us. And Alexandra?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm also turning my camera on. Okay, yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra, and I'm living in Germany, where I'm doing my master's in communications. And in our game, I'm working on the project, which is basically a fitness app, but it brings fitness and storytelling together. And I've already started doing some research on how we can prepare our pitch. But my problem was that I feel like I'm a bit lost in numbers. So I know that it's very, very important point for pitching, but I just kind of get lost in that. And yeah, that is my problem at the moment. So I don't understand our value. I know how to describe our project shortly and briefly and interestingly, but the numbers is probably the most difficult point for me.
Yeah. So like the valuation of the company.
Yeah.
The idea.
And how to present it. Yeah.
Okay. And when you need to present it, who are you looking for? Like, are you seeking for investors, or is it the case of, for example, the cost packaging and the pricing of the product?
I think at the current stage, we are going to prepare a pitch for like finding an investor. So that is why the numbers are so important.
Yes, oh, definitely.
I might add something not to confuse Liz. They're talking about the game, and in the game they have this flow when they have to do things. They have to find a mentor first. They have to prep something to find the mentor, and then together with the in-game mentor, they go and seduce an investor. So this is the stage that they have to go through.
Okay. All right. So financials within the learning
Mhm.
game. Okay. All right. I think then we should have Gabriella. Hello. I see we're in space. You're currently muted, so if you can unmute so we can
Sorry.
hear you. There we
Rookie
go.
mistake. Hi, good evening, everyone. Actually, my name is Gabriella, and I hail from Malta. And I am, compared to perhaps what I've heard so far, and apologies for joining in slightly late, I am here to learn more than anything. So I am not right now. I am not in the phase in the game or in real life where I have my idea that I'm going to pitch into a certain investor or something like that. So really, I'm here to learn more and to listen. So I am in learning phase kind of thing. But just by bit of a background, I was born as a political scientist, but then went on into management. I did implementation of EU funding, and recently I've been also working on international policies, so working with a lot of developing countries, with small islands particularly. So I'm quite mixed as a background. I've kind of worked on projects all my life, so kind of that's what I think I'm good at. So yeah, basically that's it.
Great. All right, Gabriella, lovely meeting you, fellow Maltese. Yes, I'm Samantha, by the way, for everyone to know. All right. So, and then last but not least, I think we have Sarangi, or was that everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. I don't think you've introduced.
Hi.
No. Hi.
Yeah, I've not had my turn yet. Yeah, so I am working on a problem. Like we welcomed our newborn 1.5 years ago, nearly 1.5 years ago, and I found that what you learn through books is something different from what the reality is when it comes to putting a baby to sleep. So yeah, so that is a problem that I would want to work with, and I find a lot of other new parents, new moms facing the same problem. So yeah, so I would like to come up with a sleep aid which helps solve it. Yeah, so that's the idea that I would want to work with. And regarding pitching, I understand that when you have to pitch differently for a different user group, like say for investor, the target audience. So it's different kind. So what exactly should be taken care of when you pitch to different audience is what I would like to learn. And when I tried pitching myself to different people, I have a picture in my mind of how the device should look like and how it should function. But when I like tell it, it's mostly a lot of questions back, like I don't get what exactly you're doing. So yeah, so how to get that picture in the mind out through a short pitch is kind of challenging to me. Yeah, so these are the two things that I would like to know more about.
Super. All right. So we have visualization and targeting. All right. So thank you everyone for giving us a bit of a sneak peek as to your ideas, why you're here, and the challenges that you're facing. All right. So there's quite a few different questions. So I think it would be best to kind of start off from ground zero. Obviously, when we have an idea, we always have it very, very clear in our heads. But anyone who's not in our head never knows what we are thinking, how we've reasoned it, and why we've come to this conclusion. So this is something I always say to our students, is always say to someone who's pitching, always assume that the person in front of you does not know anything. And I'm saying not just in terms of the product that you're pitching or the solution that you're pitching, but even especially in terms of the technicalities, especially when it comes to digital solutions, which I think tech here is tech, and even other different product designs is quite a key element. But in general, people are not as technical as sometimes we might assume. So it's always important to keep the language very, very simple. It's a conversation at the end of the day. The people who are listening to us are humans, and they are there to try and understand what you're trying to communicate in very simple words. The best thing is that in the first couple of minutes, so always aim to get this done and to get an impression in the first 30 seconds or 1 minute. So how is the opening? What impression are we making? What is how you're communicating as well, or even how you present yourself immediately the minute that you meet a person or you go into a call is going to have an impact. Did you open with a smile? Did you open with a greeting? Do you know who they are? Did you research the person that you're speaking to? This is very, very key. This is homework before and even unrelated to the idea itself. Understanding the person that you're speaking to will give them that value. Because if we make that other person feel important, then they're going to feel valued and they will tend to listen that slightly more. We like the attention. As human beings, we love the attention. So especially if it's a one-on-one pitch, or if it's in an office board meeting, or even if it's an online call, know your audience. Because if you go there and you say, hi, Mr. or Mrs., or thank you very much for meeting me. Maybe you've seen an update or a news that they've posted on their LinkedIn very recently, and immediately that will impress them. So I think this is also a bit of a trick in terms of the human element when it comes to pitching, especially if you kind of need something from them, when it comes to financing or selling an idea or getting a partner on board. Pitching can be used for multiple purposes, but if we show an interest to that other person, then immediately there's a bit of a connection. And I think this is very, very critical, because it's not just about what we need, but if we're going to work together, it's important to remember we're human. We value emotions. We value the time that we spend together. So you're going to, even for yourselves, if you want to spend time working with this person on whatever remit, then you want to make sure that there's a bit of a human connection and it's not just a work-based thing. Now, this may vary a bit depending on the culture. So obviously here I'm talking quite a bit from a Mediterranean standpoint, but I think in general, people are people. So even if a cup of tea is what works in a specific culture, to show respect or to show, listen, that slight friendliness immediately, then be it. But it's good to kind of kick off from there, know who you're talking to, where they're coming from, and if there can be that slight personalization. And by the way, let me know if this is something that maybe does not even work in your culture, or maybe can be seemed like completely off the radar. But in that case, it can be something that they remember, right? So being memorable is also key to pitching and to that conversation in working. Let me see, if you just give me a second, I'll just keep the chat open just in case. All right. Yeah, so that's a bit of homework before doing a pitch. Now, something that also came up in some of the challenges is the why, how to communicate the why. And I'm going to link this to what I just said in terms of researching. When researching the person or the entity that maybe you're going to approach or going to speak to, try and find out their mission. Try and find out what they believe in. What are they following? Potentially, if it's on LinkedIn, let's stick to a professional network, for example. What are the pages that they're following? Does this actually align with the point that you're trying to sell? Because if they're on the opposite side of the spectrum, then it's good to be aware of that. And if they are aligned, then great, perfect. Then you know that hopefully this will give you a bit more ease to in terms of how to approach this person, because you know that immediately that there's a bit of a connection. There's something in common with this person or this group or this entity that you may be speaking to. Now, something else that came up is how to really communicate it and how to put our passion across. Sometimes we're so passionate about something that we may be over enthusiastic. Fine, that's all well and good, but it's also good to keep that energy a bit in check. Because for some people, that can be a bit too overwhelming and too much. Then we get so into it, we start getting into the details without properly setting out the basics. and we start going into certain technicalities, and this is the product, and this is what we're trying to set you, and these are the financials, and this is why it works, and then it becomes a bit too overwhelming for the person, and they might shut down and lose interest. I find that something that can work is ask them a question. Find a question that may be a good opening. Listen, have you ever come across this problem? Start a casual conversation. Now, this is possible if it's not within a timed, so for example, if you have a 4-minute pitch, it's a very different scenario. But I'm saying this especially in the terms of, listen, you've set up a meeting, you need to pitch an idea to them, so it's formal but not within a timed presentation, like a competition. Listen, have you ever come across this problem? Maybe they've heard of someone that's come across this problem. And like that, you're easing your way into it, and you're giving them that, what I like to call aha moment. They need to realize, and when there's a realization, a person tends to be much more willing to listen to what you have and the solution that may work. Because if they maybe, for example, there was I believe it was Sarangi. I hope I said your name right. But for example, a challenge that you found was that what you find in books is not what actually happens. So if you meet someone, listen, do you have children? Or if maybe you know already that they may have children. And it can be a case of, have you ever come across a challenge of finding a discrepancy between what you might have researched versus what is in reality? Oh, perfect. Okay, what are the challenge? Go into a conversation about it. Listen, this is what I'm trying to solve. Rather than, listen, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is what I need from you. But we're making the other person, the person that's on the listening side, kind of relate to the problem, because it gives them that earning of, okay, there is actually a gap in this. I've come across this problem, so I'm willing to tell me what's your solution for this. So that's one way of kicking off in terms of the why, when it's a meeting, when it's a bit more of a casual, kind of really tapping into that human element. And I'm always going back to this because sometimes we forget and we see the other person as such a formal entity that we forget that they're humans. And it's good if we're able to build that relationship. If, on the other hand, a different scenario, you have 3 to 4 minutes, you have to do a pitch. That's obviously if it's a competition, for example, or a Shark Tank style show where you may actually get funding. The why is to be communicated, or at least I recommend it's communicated a bit differently. That comes along with an opening statement in terms of the problem. Because when we present the problem in such a pitch, in a 4-minute pitch, for example, listen, this is the problem that is being faced by the world, or this is the problem faced by X amount of people when. That's the problem. Give a fact that supports it. Listen, there's a statistic that supports what I am saying. Now, I've come up with a solution to solve this. This is why we are here. So that's why I'm saying it really, really depends on the scenario that you're in, on the environment that you're going to walk into, and the situation and the relationship of the other person on the other hand. Does this make sense? I just want to get a bit of feedback. Is this something that you've tried and maybe that hasn't worked yet? Have you tried any other approach that maybe has worked? I know I'm rambling a lot, that's why. I don't know if there's any feedback or comments. Like, do you think this would work? I'll open the space for anyone who might want to add.
Yeah, so what if that person hasn't faced the problem? So it's difficult to put forward the pain that the other user group would have faced. So in that case, I think, wouldn't it be difficult to, communicate it across?
Fair enough. I think in that case, it's good to have the facts, the statements ready. So if that person hasn't come across it, if there's, for example, X amount of families or if X amount of women actually have faced this struggle. That's where the market research needs to come in. So, for example, you can share with them, tell them, listen, I've done market research. I've had, let's say, 500 respondents. 300 of them, 300 to 400 of them, for example, obviously here I'm inventing, have actually agreed that there is a discrepancy. So like that, then you're presenting them with a fact. That can be a bit like, oh, okay, that's an issue. That's potentially one way of mitigating that scenario. Because yes, obviously that's also a possibility. Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Gabriella, go ahead.
One quick, I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, but it's something one of the things I'm involved with is Toastmasters Malta, and I am a member, I've been a member, and basically it advocates for public speaking. And one of the things I've learned is that the cultural background is so important, and it conditions us when we are delivering a message in so many different ways. And especially when you're reaching out to investors who potentially come from different backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds. And this is, I think, something which perhaps even as women, we really have to be even more aware of, because I think there's a lot of cultural priming that we kind of take for granted. But if you even see sometimes pitches by men compared to women, sometimes even the way they put it is a bit different. So perhaps that is something that we kind of have to take stock of. I'm not saying that it should condition us, far from it, but we should be aware so as to kind of shape the message perhaps around that. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Gabriella, for that. All right. Anyone else? All right, let's see if there's any questions. Great point. Super fantastic. Yes, I mean, gender, I think, does make a difference, especially if, for example, the person, the entity listening to might be a bit more, I'm saying entity because it might be a group, it might be an individual or representation of a company, but it might be a bit more male dominant. So obviously even our approach, what we wear, the way we talk, the way we go into it, makes a difference. And it's important, I think, to go in with confidence, irrelevant of the situation. I think how we act is the most dominant feature in a pitch. I'm sure we've all heard of even the body language aspect and the non-verbal communication, right? It's not just about what we say, but how we say it, how we're acting when we're saying it. And even small things such as, are we holding our arms crossed, because that tends to put a barrier between us and the person listening to us, or are we using even our hand gestures? I'm sorry, it's a bit limited, but like, for example, are we using our hand gestures with a more open approach? And this is all the subconscious talking to us when we're kind of in that conversation. Especially, I think, when someone disagrees with us or does not see our point. The minute that someone says, I don't believe in what you're saying, or I disagree with what you're saying, I think without realizing, sometimes we may, because the idea is ours and we're so passionate about it and we see the value of it and we're like, this will work, I'm sure this will work because I can do it, because I have the motivation. And if someone says no to us, we may, without realizing, have that kind of reel back physically, and that may immediately kind of close off the conversation. Now, that it might be good that a person kind of disagrees immediately, because it might show you where they stand. At the end of the day, not everyone is the best partner for us. I think my connection might be cutting every now and then, so please do let me know if I cut. Not everyone that we approach may be the best partner for us either. So it's good to be picky. It's good to know who works for you and who doesn't. Not everyone is a perfect match. If it's on a people person, if it's on an entity basis, maybe you're looking for investment, but the person who's offering you investment might not be aligned with the values of your startup or of what you want to do. And initially, it might look all nice and pretty. Yes, I got the funding. Yes, I got the money. But long term, will it actually work? So these are all questions I think to keep in mind. Some of you already mentioned that maybe sometimes the pitch hasn't worked, and it will take quite a number of trials. This is how also the world works, and I really do believe in the universe kind of sometimes talking to us subconsciously through science here and there. But let's go back to the pitching ideas. Every now and then I'm looking down because I took a couple of notes as to what the challenges were. Now going into, so we've opened up a bit into the why, the relationship, the research that we need to do. And I think now we can start diving a bit more into the content of what we want to do. So something I really, really believe in is Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. It's something I'll actually be going into a bit more on in Friday's session in terms of the why, the how, the what, which is so critical for any idea, for any startup to have kind of that clarity of basis. But I don't go too much into it. However, I do find it to be a very useful way of even structuring a pitch. Because if we understand why, the why tends to be that human side. And then you go into the problem, like, listen, this is why we exist. This is the problem. These are the facts. Yes, Simon Sinek, power to him. And then we kind of move a bit more into the solution. Now, when communicating the solution, keep it simple. The theory of the kiss. Keep it super simple. Always think that the person in front of you is, excuse my language, a dumb person. You have to assume that they won't understand complicated words, complicated language. We want them to understand it immediately without needing to further explain. If you cannot do it in 30 seconds, then it's too complicated. If you can't do it in like 1 to 2 short sentences, then find a way to simplify it. It's not about the technical details. It's about explaining the basis of the solution. For example, let me try get an example. Okay, so I'm holding a pencil in my hand. Let's imagine that this never existed in the world, right? This is the first time that you're all seeing it, and I'm gonna try and explain it to you. I can go like, yes, I've created something that will make your life easier, and it's made of wood, and it has this metallic sort of feature in the center, and it's all colorful, and then it like at some point you're going to write with it, and then but then let me tell you the most amazing thing: you can rewrite over what you rewrote. Most likely that's very confusing. I could have just said, listen, I'm gonna make your life easier because we've invented a tool for you to write. It has an eraser. You can rub it off and correct your error. That is the ultimate solution, right? Super simple. As obviously, this is something we all know. So that was a very quick example that that I kind of brought to my mind right now. All right, we have Sasha. Yes.
Yes, I have a comment from my own experience of preparing a pitch that avoid using abbreviations that may be unfamiliar to the other side.
Definitely. Thank you very much, actually, for that. Yes, definitely do not use any abbreviations of sort. This is why I always suggest either record yourself through a video or do a quick pitch in front of someone for them so that you can even highlight where you have used abbreviations. Sometimes we're using them so often that you don't realize. I do it even at my job sometimes. I'm like, yeah, JA and OC and EFS and EMB, and this person is looking at me and I'm like, oh yes, you don't know what these kind of words mean. And yes, so that's why I always say keep it super simple. Never assume that the other person understands the technicalities. Assuming makes an ass of you and me. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's a very common phrase in my job. But it's always good to remember these small things because they're true at the end of the day. So that's in terms of how to communicate the product. As I said, like if you can't do it in a couple of seconds, then you need to simplify it. Then go into the technicalities if they ask you, if there is interest. But unless there is the need to, scrap it. Any fluff you can remove it. Anything extra that is not going to contribute to you reaching the objective of the meeting, it doesn't need to be there. If there's questions, if there's comments, the other person's showing interest and it is needed, yes, go into it, definitely. If they're asking you, listen, can you explain the technicality? What about the back end? What about data protection, for example? What about in terms of the operations? How will you be running it? Who will be producing the product? Go into it. Now, I am assuming that all the homework has been done, that your research has been done, proof of concept is already in progress. So this comes with kind of more of the final stage of things. So kind of having all the bits and pieces. But if there is something that maybe you don't know, don't bluff. It's better to be honest and tell them, listen, good suggestion. We haven't looked into it. Oh, we haven't considered it. It's better to be honest than trying to kind of bluff your way through something that is not true, or you haven't researched, or you're not sure about. It's better to clarify after, because people will see right through us. And the minute that someone might see that, listen, you're basically bullshitting, it will put them off. I really excuse my language, I hope. That's okay with everyone here. But it's true, like the minute that's, and I'm sure that this has happened to all of you, the minute that someone might have lied to you about something or try to kind of wiggle their way through the truth, it puts us off. And it's good to eliminate and be honest about something that at the end of the day, it's a startup, you're in the beginning of it, you're having these meetings, you're going through these pitches specifically to learn, specifically to keep growing, gain more knowledge, and do it better with every day that passes. Be nice to yourselves in the meantime. And everyone is, at the end of the day, you're really trying to do the best that you can. All right, so storytelling, okay, needing funding. Yes, and in the beginning, something that also came up, I think Karen mentioned this, is the challenge to be positive. Obviously, when we're pitching something which is our own, it's important that we do have a positive approach to it. And try to eliminate, when it comes to language, negative language. This is not that. Because the minute that these negative, negating keywords come into it, then immediately there's that negative kind of vibe that's put into it, rather than, yes, this is what we are able to do in comparison to. Use thesauruses, use word searches. I use them all the time, even when I'm writing emails, when I'm writing documents. A thesaurus, I think, is our best friends. Like, find words and phrases that kind of are our alternatives to these statements, and ask around. Like, if you're stuck with something specific with a paragraph, message a friend via WhatsApp. You can message the network here now. You're part of Female Switch Network, so I think a lot of people here would also be willing to help if this is also a struggle. And even if, for example, if you've been receiving quite a few no's, or people who kind of left you hanging, because this may also tend to happen, follow-ups. And if you see that the person after 2 times maybe hasn't followed up, give them a bit of space, because if there's actual interest, they would have. I think this may also be reflective of a potential relationship, even if there's a company or an agency or an individual that you want them to support you and they showed potential, but it's been a month, you followed up 3 times, you haven't heard back from them, not even an okay, then rethink that potential relationship, because if it's happening now in the very beginning, then how will it evolve over time? Kind of just to assess a bit situations. All right, so that was that. Then we had Sheku, who was talking to us about making artistic videos for people. As I said in the beginning, I think this is a case of really kind of analyzing the sustainability element of the company and building a map, a timeline of, listen, maybe in the first couple of months work towards building the brand, and even if this means kind of building a simpler product but will give you more clients initially to build the name of your company, then I would suggest investing in that to kind of build you up, especially if you're freelancing. And then the more time grows, the more your name is known, the more clientele there is, the more network. And networking is so important. And then kind of, I think long term, going into striving much more into the artistic storytelling element, if this is the most challenging part. But I think this might need a bit of a one-on-one chat due to the very specific kind of conversation that is needed and challenge. Customization, yes, exactly. All right, and then I think we had Alina. Alina's main challenge is pitching it to the parents, to the main customers who needs to buy the product, the Meta Universe for Children, I believe it was mentioned, that is named as, in terms of games and knowledge. I think, and if I'm correct, if you're targeting parents, are you looking at targeting people in the Netherlands, or are you targeting like a global market?
Global market, but I will start from Great Britain maybe, or the Netherlands, I think. And the next USA.
All right, super. The what I would suggest though is a bit of profiling, because obviously even people and culture change are very different from one country to another. So especially if you're targeting a clientele that is not specifically like the same culture as yours, because you may have moved. I'm not sure how long you've been living there, so I might be completely wrong about this. But try and see if you can even join online groups, forums, networking events where you can speak to parents. So you really find out what are they looking for, what are the challenges. And even if you pitch it to them, like one-on-one, listen, I have this idea, keep it super simple so that one, it doesn't take too long, and two, you don't give the full idea away, but you get their initial feedback, and kind of even see how they're reacting to the idea, even from their body language. So kind of like saying, do they smile at it? Do they look curious? Were they confused? Are they showing and reflecting value for what you're pitching? To see how you can really then not just market it, but even in terms of the solution itself, making sure that it really targets the group properly, and creating maybe profiling different profiles of potential clients. So from a marketing standpoint, this is much more from a marketing, I think, angle, if I'm not mistaken, right, Alina?
Yes, I asked already a couple of parents, and I have 2 points, 2 main problems from this speech. That's her children sit in a smartphone a long time every day. That's worried the parents. And the second point, the second problem is that they children don't wanna learn nothing, just playing the game and looking video with kids in TikTok. There's I don't know what's the main problem of 2 of it.
No, definitely, and I think COVID has not helped. I think even in Malta, at least, young people's apathy has definitely increased a lot, in terms of kind of not wanting to learn more, just doing what we need to do. And the world of TikTok and online social media has, I think, affected a lot the mentality of knowledge and the approach for knowledge. Obviously, I haven't seen the product in itself, but when it comes to maybe the gamification element, but as you said, that's really what you're already targeting, games and knowledge. And I assume this would be online. If you want, we can also have a separate chat, and maybe I can kind of see the product. But I'm not Dutch, so I may also not be the best person to check it out. All right. And then we had, yes, so there was that. And then Alexandra also mentioned the fitness app merged with storytelling concept. I'm very curious to see how this works, by the way. And the main challenge was the financials. Now, in terms of financials, I do have a degree in accounting, but that's primarily as far as it goes. So I may not be the best person to help out here. And I think that there might be some other people specifically in terms of finances. But this is an interesting one to bring up when it comes to finances because of pitching. Sometimes in a pitch, we do need to provide information when it comes to financials. Given the assumption that you have your numbers, the P&Ls, the balance sheets, and or the forecasting, the financial forecast for the next 2-3 years for an idea, right? In a pitch, it's important to not give too much. Investors especially care about the profits, the basic cost per unit, and when they're going to make the money. That's the bottom line. They don't need the full 5-year cash flow, inflow, outflow, inflow. These are the 50 items of cost we're gonna go into the every single year. They really just want to know the basics. For example, even if you watch Shark Tank, I'm sure some of you at least have, they always ask, what's the cost per unit? What's the profit margin per unit? When are you gonna break even? And have you done any sales already to show proof of concept? So I would say always start with these 4 elements when it comes to giving a pitch. Assuming that all the homework is done, this is always my assumption here, all the research has been done, the planning has been done for that, potentially sales have already kicked off and already started. I think that should have touched upon everyone's main points. I don't know if there's any other questions, any comments that anyone wants to add, and I would like to ask if this has actually been useful to see how we can improve it for next time. All right, let me see. There's a comment in the chat. No, nothing specific. I do have a question. Sasha, if I may have. All right, no problem. Lovely meeting you. This was very, very cool. A very nice space to be in. Please do reach out if you want any further help. Sasha, do we have 5 more minutes?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. So actually, I will ask. As I mentioned in the very beginning, I have a very, very short session, 5 minutes, in terms of designing visual decks, presentation decks. Would you like me to do it, or shall we close off here? Yes. Okay. There was one yes. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay. Can you see my screen? Presenting, loading. Okay. Can you see it? Yes. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is, I'm a big fan of PowerPoint. Merged with, not on its own though, merged with other design tools such as Canva, or Illustrator or Photoshop or any other design tools that you may be familiar with. But as a person who does not know how to use Illustrator, Canva is a bit of a work in progress to maximize on it. I do love the new PowerPoint and the tools that it offers. However, I'm just gonna give you a couple of tips and tricks. I really hope that these are not new. Maybe they're just reminders in terms of when presenting a presentation deck that will be supporting you talking. Okay, so this is not in case of a document that you need to submit, literally, such as me giving this presentation. So let me just go into my, there we go, okay. So this is something very important to understand. The message of your 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 4 minutes is the star of the show, not the presentation, not the PowerPoint, not the pretty pictures that you're showing behind you, but what you are saying. So this is all about seeing how this as a tool can really maximize what you are saying in your speech and through what you want to convey. I'm going to go into a bit of design aspects when coming to creating this. First thing that I've learned, I think this was something I learned very recently, and I realized the importance of it, is spacing. Spacing in a PowerPoint, keeping it clean, keeping it simple, can help convey and maximize the message so much more. Spacing, that's it. Keep space around things, don't cram things together. Keep it simple, consistent, and easy. People want to listen to you. It's ideal that people are looking at you and listening to what you have to say, rather than trying to focus on what's behind you on the PowerPoint. What is that small text? What is that URL? What is that number that is blurry behind you and I cannot read? Because if they're going through that experience, then they are not really listening to what you have to say. So the question is, how do we do this? Number one, the template. There's a lot of simple templates on initial templates on PowerPoint. I suggest you get away from that. Be a bit creative. Create your own slide. Create your own template. One tool that I've already mentioned just now is using Canva. Canva is such a powerful tool. There's a lot of templates. You can automatically select presentation slide deck 16:9, which is usually the automatic slide, and just you choose a simple design, one or two designs, so that if you have a different type of slide, you can vary amongst them. So that is one way on how you can choose your design. And then on PowerPoint, you can add it to your master slide. Why is master slide important? Because that means that your background will not move, and it is actually identical from one to another. That is creating consistency. How do we do this? Simply go into View and Slide Master and set it up. As you can see, there's different layers. I'm sure you're all familiar with, or maybe haven't used this in a while. Here's a small reminder on how to do it. So you have the first main, let me try use the pointer. Okay, here we go. You have the first main template. This is the, here we go, this one at the top. This is where you have the master of the master site. So for example, you want to make sure your logo is featuring always in the same location. So you use that. Then if you want a different layout, you can select in the sub layouts. Nice, simple, easy. All right, let me remove the laser pointer. All right, number two, images. Make sure that you don't use images with a background, or images that have been stamped by ownership of another company. Yes, it's important that images are also clear, they're clean, and ideally there's no white background or blurry backgrounds. You use clean images. Now there's many resources, there's many free tools as well, such as Pixabay. Pixabay has high quality photos, icons, images, animated. If you need it, you probably find it. And if you have, for example, any icons and whatnot, make sure they have clean, transparent backgrounds, so no corners which are cut out, nothing which is, has a weird border around it. Make sure, and always make sure that you have the right to use the images. Even on Google, for example, there is a way on how to filter for images, which are free to use, especially for non-commercial items, or you can even filter them to be transparent. So that is what to do with your images. Another thing about images, make sure that if you are changing, if you are resizing an image, this is done to ratio, especially if it's a logo or something that's representing your brand. Make sure that it is representing it well. To make sure, excuse me about that, I mistakenly left my slideshow. Okay, let me just make sure that you can still see it. I think I stopped sharing. If you can give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so this is, I believe, where we were. All right, so this is something that's simple to use, a quick keyboard shortcuts to keep images to ratio, shift. When you're resizing, click the shift before, and you can click on the corner, and it will automatically keep the ratio. If it was 3:4, it will stick to the 3:4. If you don't click the shift, you can easily make it either wider or thinner, and therefore you lose the brand representation of what you have. But keep in mind, this is specifically to PowerPoint because every platform has its own function. I know in Canva, if you click the shift, it will actually lose the ratio. So what I'm saying is specifically for that. Transitions and animations. Some people still make use of a lot of animations and transitions. Nowadays, this is not recommended because it will make it way too busy and loses the focus from what you're saying. So maybe choose one and keep it consistent. Personally, I like the fade. It's nice, it's easy, it's subtle, and it really gives a nice transition between one page to another. Less is more nowadays, minimalistic concepts. Text on slides. I'm sure we've had a lot of lecturers, especially when we were at university or studying, who may have had multiple slides of a lot of text that we cannot read. This means that the people listening to you will be trying to read the text, and do not put the exact text that you're saying, the script that you might be saying in a pitch on the visual deck. You want points to reiterate what you're saying. So if you say a sentence of nowadays plastic pollution is a problem because XYZ. Plastic pollution is a problem. Point. Because XYZ. Keep it simple. I suggest do bullet point. Maximum 5 points per slide. As I said, the slides are there to support you. Icons and images are a super tool as well. These little icons. So if you want to represent people, rather than writing people, you put a people icon. If you want to say a text box, then you put an image of a text box. If you want to put money, then you can put an icon of a dollar sign or a euro sign, for example. And flat icon is also another platform that you can use specifically for that. If you're scared that you'll forget your script or what you want to say because they're not on the slides, use the notes section on a PowerPoint. It is very, very useful. You can even print flashcards if you need them, have them printed in your hands for a reference point, but ideally not on the presentation deck. Exactly, this is where the notes can be at the bottom of the slide. You can widen the bar, and there's a space where you can actually write your own personal notes as a presenter. Yeah, there we go. Hello, this is what I want to say. Budgets and numbers on slides. A lot of people, especially when presenting for investors or pitch decks and looking for funding, we tend to overload with financials. This will be very hard to read, and it may demotivate a person actually from reading it. One other way of representing is with the use of graphs, charts. Make it visual, make it something that a person can immediately grasp the information they need in those 1 or 2 seconds. Graphs can even be created directly onto PowerPoint, insert chart. It will bring up an Excel sheet, put in the data that you want, and then you can choose pie graph, bar graph, scatter chart, pie chart. So you want a 3D, you want to turn around, it is there as an option. So this is definitely. Thank you very much, Gabriella. Lovely meeting you, and we're almost done. The Fire Festival, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. There's also a documentary on Netflix about it. And I am almost done. The Fire Festival was actually a fantastic marketing and I think pitching example in a way, because this was a festival that went into millions. The tickets for this festival had sold in 48 hours. The festival never actually existed, but everyone paid for their tickets. They showed up, there was nothing. And I think this was one of the biggest marketing gimmicks I've ever heard of, at least, because people paid hundreds in order to attend, to get their cabins. They're thinking they're going to this best festival ever, and then they literally show up and there is nothing, not a tent, not a stage. There was plumbing issues, there's electricity issues, but it's a very, very interesting story and I think documentary to look into, to learn a lot about selling, because the guys behind this were the most fantastic sellers, I think, to ever exist. They were passionate about it, then they sold it, they took photos, they presented it in such a sexy way that everyone wanted to be part of it. So they knew what they were doing in terms of pitching the idea, but then the execution was a complete flop. So that's the Fire Festival, and these are just 2 quick slides in terms of how we present our proposal. For example, in terms of numbers and general impact of the organization. So as you can see, it's easy. There's icons, the key numbers that people might want to look at, things that can impress as well. And yeah, I think that has really brought us to the end of the space. I really apologize for taking longer than I thought. As a closing, number 1, your message is the star of the show. The design secret is the spacing. White space keeps it clean, nice and easy. Keep it simple, consistent, and easy. And that is it from me. Thank you very much, Sasha, for allowing me to extend this time a bit longer. And I will now stop sharing. Okay, somehow. Okay, there we go. And that is it from me. I think that is more than the hour I was assigned. I really hope this was useful for everyone. Maybe, as I said, not completely new information, but it's good to be reminded every now and then. And if anyone would like to have a one-on-one chat at any point, or to review, or just kind of go through anything as an external perspective, please do feel free to reach out.
Thank you. It was very nice, very informative. Thanks.
I'm glad. Thank you very much, Karen. All right, I think then we can wrap it up here, Sasha.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. As I said, lovely to meet you all. Super exciting stuff. And I look forward to everyone's ideas growing and seeing your progress on the platform.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your useful information.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.